Number 7. Scam artists. In 2021, a pair of women were arrested by police in Miami Beach, Florida, after they robbed a tourist and made off with thousands of dollars. The suspects were identified as 20-year-old Kimberly Ann LeBron Martinez and 19-year-old Elizabeth Lobby. According to police reports, the girls met the tourist from Texas on Collins Avenue on Friday, September 24th, and asked him to have a drink with them. He didn't want to drink at first, but he continued to hang out with the women. The three of them went to Sonny's Bar and Restaurant until it closed. After that, they headed to Collins Park and picked up more alcohol at a gas station on their way there. The arrest report explained that while the group was at the park, the victim was given a beverage, but after he drank it, he felt like he was drugged and lost consciousness. Kimberly and Elizabeth then robbed the man of his $10,000 Omega watch, credit and debit cards, a gold chain, and his white Yeezy sneakers. Not long after, the girls began making purchases with the stolen cards. Over the next 16 hours, the pair spent $15,000 of the victim's money. Luckily, their car was spotted a couple days later and they were quickly arrested by police. When Kimberly was questioned by detectives, she reportedly confessed to spiking the man's drink and said she used a mixture of crushed Xanax and water. Elizabeth and Kimberly are now facing charges of grand theft, unlawful possession of a stolen credit card, robbery, and fraudulent use of identification. As of now, it's unclear whether the girls received jail sentences for their crimes. Number 6. Killer twins. Identical twins Tasmia and Jasmia Whitehead were just 16 years old when they murdered their mother in Conyers, Georgia in May of 2010. For most of their lives, the girls were raised by their great-grandmother, Della Frazier. However, when the girls were 13, their mother Nikki regained custody of them, and they went to live with her from then on out. Tasmia and Jasmia clashed with Nikki, and they saw the woman as controlling and hypocritical of everything they did. Sometimes disputes between them would turn violent, and after the two girls were sent to juvenile court for their behavior, their great-grandmother was once again given custody of them. However, this didn't last long, and on January 5, 2010, the girls were back in the care of their mother. Just 8 days later, Nikki's body was found dead in the bathroom of their home with multiple stab wounds, and she appeared to be badly beaten. At first, Nikki's boyfriend, 55-year-old Robert Head, was thought to be guilty of the crime, since the twins claimed they were the ones that found their mom's body. But Robert was later cleared after DNA testing cleared him of the crime. Bite marks found on Nikki would ultimately reveal the real culprits of the crime, the twins. Tasmia and Jasmia initially pleaded not guilty to the charges, but in 2014, they both confessed to the murder of their mother. In the end, the girls were sentenced to serve 30 years in prison. They were eligible for parole in 2017, but it doesn't seem like either of them have been released. Number 5. Indecent exposure. In Ocean City, New Jersey, in August of 2022, a pair of women were arrested for indecent exposure after they were seen swimming naked in a private pool. 40-year-old Mandy Mary Ruggeber from Liverpool, New York, and her friend, 37-year-old Brandy Marie Duxbury from East Greenbush, were identified as the suspects. The incident occurred on August 24th at around 4 in the morning near the city street of Robin Drive. When authorities arrived at the scene, they found that both women were intoxicated and Duxbury was completely naked. The girls were laughing and yelling at one another when police showed up. Ruggeber was standing next to the locked gate entrance outside the pool area, while Duxbury was already inside. When police asked her how she gained access to the private pool, Duxbury explained that she hopped over the fence. The officers tried to open the gate, which then caused Duxbury to jump into the pool in order to avoid arrest. When they told her to get out of the water, she initially refused, but she finally did as she was told. When she came out of the pool, an officer covered her naked body with a poncho. While police escorted Duxbury out of the gated area, Ruggeber continued to yell and scream, which ended in her being arrested as well. The women gave fake names to the officers at first, but the truth came out after a while. Apparently, as they were interrogating the girls on the sidewalk, Ruggeber exposed her private parts as she laid on her back, possibly trying to seduce the men. Unfortunately for her, it didn't work. Mandy Mary Ruggeber and Brandy Marie Duxbury were consequently charged with indecent exposure, disorderly conduct, trespassing on private property, and hindering, obstructing an investigation. They were supposed to appear in court on September 26th, but at the moment, their punishment is unknown. Number 4. Professional liars. 2 women from Texas threatened to kidnap and kill a man after they all got frisky in the backseat of his car in a parking lot in 2022. On September 14th, officers responded to a 911 call from a man who claimed there was a person with a gun at a Family Dollar store. The caller said there were 2 females trying to kill him and that one of them had a knife while the other had a handgun. When they arrived at the scene of the alleged crime, they saw an adult man running near the road. He quickly made it known that he was the one who called 911, and he pointed out the 2 suspects who were discovered nearby in the Family Dollar parking lot. The 2 women were identified as 23-year-old Jasmine Arlene Rojas and 17-year-old Cassandra Alexis Garza Rangel, and they were both taken into custody to be questioned. Apparently, the duo gave different explanations for what had happened, but police didn't believe their stories. The man told officers that earlier that day, he picked up Cassandra from a house in the 500 block of Musser Street. The 2 of them then drove to an abandoned house where they got it on. Then afterwards, he dropped Cassandra back off at the residence he picked her up from. Later that day, the woman called him again and asked him to take her and Jasmine, her cousin, to an H-E-B grocery store that was nearby. However, on the way to the store, the man claimed to overhear Jasmine setting up what he believed was some kind of a drug deal. When she hung up on the phone call, their plans changed, and they asked to be taken to the Family Dollar instead. When they arrived at their destination, he said that he parked the vehicle in the dark, empty parking lot, and Cassandra and Jasmine then asked him to join them in the back seat. This is when they all allegedly got frisky with one another. Jasmine apparently wanted to blindfold the man with her red top, but he told her no. When he told them he didn't want to fool around anymore, Jasmine attempted to stab him with a knife. When he tried to exit the car, Cassandra grabbed him by the shirt. He then explained that after they stopped him from getting out of the vehicle, they told him he was being kidnapped and they were going to kill him. He said he barely made it out alive, but finally managed to get out of the car just as Jasmine told Cassandra to grab the gun from her purse. Not surprisingly, the women claimed the events leading up to the crime happened differently. Jasmine said the man gave them a ride to the Family Dollar, but then sexually assaulted her and her cousin. Cassandra claimed that they were walking down the road when the man pulled over and offered them a ride. When they arrived at the Family Dollar, she said he pulled out a condom, which made them think he was about to assault them. This was their explanation for trying to get their gun. However, investigators began to suspect the girls were lying after all of them were questioned and gave different stories. Officers also found the man's identification and wallet in Cassandra's possession, which only seemed to prove that the women were at fault in this situation. In the end, Jasmine Arlene Rojas and Cassandra Alexis Garza Rangel were charged with 1 count of aggravated robbery, but their sentencing remains unclear. Number 3. Mean Girls. In 2012, Skylar Neese, a 16-year-old honor roll student from Star City, West Virginia, was stabbed to death by her supposed best friends after they decided they no longer liked her. Skylar climbed out of her bedroom window on July 6th of that year in order to meet up with her besties, Rachel Schoaf and Sheila Eddy. However, that would be the last day Skylar would be seen alive. The trio's relationship started to go south as the bond between Rachel and Sheila grew, which left Skylar feeling like a third wheel. It started to become clear that Skylar was no longer wanted in their friend group, and Rachel and Sheila came up with a plot to get rid of her for good. After Skylar never returned home after sneaking out that night, she was reported missing by her parents. Sheila later called the Neese residents to let them know the 3 of them had gone out that night to get high, but she claimed they dropped Skylar back off at the end of her street so they wouldn't wake them up. This story held up for a while, but the truth was later revealed. It became evident to detectives investigating the case that Skylar's so-called friends were involved in her disappearance, as they showed no remorse for their missing bestie. They also gained access to the security cameras from the night of Skylar's disappearance, which showed a car picking her up. When they found out the vehicle belonged to Sheila, Police cross-referenced surveillance footage from various nearby businesses from that night and found the same car at a convenience store in Blackstone. Sheila and Rachel were then named the prime suspects in the case, but they didn't have enough evidence to arrest them. But on December 28th, Rachel finally cracked under the pressure and confessed to the murder. She told officers everything and claimed that she and Sheila had stabbed Skylar and then left her body in the woods just across the Pennsylvania border. Skylar's body was later found, and Rachel and Sheila were charged with the murder. Rachel was found guilty of second-degree murder and was given a 30-year sentence, while Sheila was charged with first-degree murder and was ordered to spend the rest of her life behind bars. Number 2. It's a trap. Michaela Paulus and her boyfriend, Adam Simji, were taking a drive along an Alabama forest road in August of 2022 when they were attacked by a couple of women posing as damsels in distress. Simji and Paulus were students at the University of Central Florida, and they decided to take one final road trip together before the start of their fall semester. As they drove along the Talladega National Forest Road, they stopped to help a woman and her friend who claimed to be stranded. However, as they got out of their vehicle to assist them, one of the women, Yasmin Hyder, pulled out a gun to rob them. She ordered the couple to go into the woods as her friend, Crystal Pinkins, watched the events unfold from a distance. But what Hyder failed to notice was that Simji had a concealed pistol. He then pulled out his weapon and tried to fight back against the women. He shot at Hyder, who returned his fire, but Pinkins fled into the woods. Unfortunately, Simji was hit, and he passed away from his injuries as his panicked girlfriend desperately performed CPR. Before Simji died though, he shot Hyder as well, but she somehow survived the gunshot. Paulus called the police, and when they arrived, Hyder was quickly arrested. Officers then searched the woods for Pinkins, and to their surprise, they came across an entire camp of people living in the forest. As they approached the camp, Pinkins' 5-year-old son met the officers with a loaded shotgun. The boy was disarmed without incident, and Pinkins was arrested for her involvement in the crime. Both women were charged with kidnapping, robbery, and murder. Pinkins was also given an extra charge for child endangerment. Due to a gag order, nobody is able to speak with the press regarding the case, and so, for the time being, their sentencing remains unclear. Number 1. Needless violence. In Santa Ana, California, 2 women were arrested for fatally beating 23-year-old Kim Pham on January 19, 2014, outside of a nightclub. The culprits of the crime were 26-year-old Vanessa Zavala and 27-year-old Candice Brito. That night, Pham and a group of her friends were taking pictures together outside the club, formerly known as the Crosby. When Brito and Zavala's acquaintance, only identified as Amelia, accidentally ran into Pham, it sparked a verbal altercation between them. But the defendants took things way too far and began to physically attack Pham, knocking her to the ground. As Pham laid on the floor, Brito and Zavala started kicking her over and over in the head. Pham sustained severe brain damage from the assault, and she passed away 2 days later in the hospital. The women responsible for her death were convicted of the crime in July with charges of assault and manslaughter. During their trial, Pham's distraught family pleaded with the judge and jury to give them the maximum sentence of 11 years in jail. However, at their official sentencing, they were each only given 6 years behind bars. Brito and Zavala apologized profusely for their actions, and they truly seemed remorseful for what they'd done. This case took place back in 2014, so both women are free today, and hopefully, they've learned from their mistakes. Which of these female crime cases shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on The Bad Badger.